I do think we need to have a real conversation about what actually happened. It's not just all white people are bad and black people are good, right? We had oppression in our own community. And these are the discussions that we often don't want to talk about. Hey there, welcome back to the channel. My name is Tiffany Harrison, and I am an actor, creative coach, and comedian. And today we are talking about the Woman King and whether or not to boycott it. Now, I want to start off slow, get you guys warmed up. So we're going to talk a little bit about the technical elements, and then we will get into the controversy. The Woman King is based on true events, true story of the Ogoji warriors, who were an all-female soldier squadron that were raised up out of the villages of Dahomey, which is in modern-day Benin. This is between the 16th and 18th centuries, and so it's right during the time of the transatlantic slave trade, and they're under the king Gezo, who is played by John Boyega, and they are led as a general from Naniska, who is played by Viola Davis, or Viola Davis. Is it Viola or Viola? I always get that wrong. The first scene, you guys, it is a, I don't even know what to say, a feast of the eyes. I mean, it is so incredible to see all of these dark-skinned, beautiful, Amazonian, strong, fierce women on screen. And I'm gonna be honest, I have never, in all of my years of watching movies and TV shows, I've never seen a sea of dark skin of women that look like me in that way, at least not at the outset of a film. So I'm really, really, really excited about the fact that the first scene is just like, you're invited in. It's such a full-bodied experience, if that makes any sense. I was just so captivated by that first scene. And these women are no joke, okay? I heard about Viola Davis's like workout routine and how she was getting prepared for this film. These girls are strong, they are sword fighting, they are taking the heads off of people and of dummies that they're working with. Like, it is such a brutal, but also like very magnificent way to see these women in all of their power, all of their strength, all of their muscle. Lighting is an art form. Lighting Black people is an art form. It is so amazing to see the lighting and the work that is being done on these hues, all of these dark skin complexions, and there's like a bunch of nuance in terms of the spectrum of color. Lighting is one of those things that can just really change the entire energy and emotion of a scene. I don't think I've seen this good of lighting since, I don't know. I'm gonna be honest, like every time I see Black people on TV, I be mad at the lighting because I'm like, this is a mess. The pacing of this film is so intentional and so perfect. The lighting helps you change moods and change emotions with the characters. So you're very present with the content. You ever been watching a movie and you're just like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to eat after this. Can they move on? The camera is lingering too long here. This movie, you do not have that problem. I believe the runtime is somewhere around 2 hours, but them 2 hours flew by, guys, because it is so specific and so rhythmic. I mean, very similar to the drums of Africa in the film. It is so rhythmic and it just moves, y'all. It swings. And I was having so much fun just like watching it and like going along with the journey of the characters and the arc and the transformation of each one. And right when you need some brevity or you need a break, you get that sustained hold of space in the film. I could gush all day long, but the pacing was perfect. And one other note before we really get into the controversy, make sure you smash that like button before we get into the controversy. Don't boycott this video, okay? Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. But one other thing that I thought was so fascinating is this movie plays a lot with the authority versus the individual. The Ogoji warriors are the king's guard. They're considered to be like the king's wives, and they are celibate. They are virgins, many of them. And so you have this dichotomy of they have never been touched by another man, or they are practicing celibacy now in the king's household, and he is considered to be their only groom. What's interesting is the devotion to the king is paramount over anything else. And this is really fascinating to me because in an American context, we don't understand that hierarchy, that idea of devotion over self. There's no autonomy in this world of the film, in this time period of Africa and West Africa. It is all for the good of the whole. And so the King's Guard, the Ogoji warriors, these women are considered to be completely siphoned off only for the purposes of the king. Now, we're going to talk about this later, but I thought this was so interesting because we saw even with the pandemic how little people wanted to give up their own comfort and their own autonomy for the good of everybody else. Like, folks was mad, okay, about having to do things that would inconvenience them for a short time so that other people could have the benefit. This type of messaging was really fascinating to me, especially as a faith person, because in honoring God, my desire is to serve the king. But there are times where I want to rebel, where I go kicking and screaming to do the order that he's given me. And God has told me to do something more than once, and I'm over there, dragging my feet on it. And I think this film really plays with that power dynamic and what that looks like. Are you going to honor self, or are you going to honor the king? Now let's get right into the controversy, okay? There are people calling for a boycott of this film. And here's what's interesting about the boycott. It is not coming from like upset white people. It's not coming from another people group that's like, hey, I want this film taken down. This is coming from Black people, African people who want to boycott the film because of the historical context. So let me give you some background. The Ogoji warriors is a true thing. These were real people, a real female warrior tribe, but their history is bad. It's evil, okay? Because the middle of the transatlantic slave trade, they were selling their people. Actually, King Gezo, who's played by John Boyega in this film, he was known as the slave king. He was a slave trader, and he was trading his own people for goods and other things from the Europeans and the British. And so many of the captives that were taken in from other nearby villages were then put into the Ogoji warriors. And if they didn't last, they would be sold into slavery across the ocean. And so there's a really dark history and dark context that frankly the film doesn't necessarily illuminate in all of its crassness. That said, you do get to see the gruesomeness of the warriors. You get to see that they are taking off people's heads. It is a bit of a violent film. It ends up with this kind of redemptive core, this triumphant core for this warrior team. And I think it's really interesting because this boycott is actually founded. Like, I can understand why people are like, listen, we don't want to honor slave traders. And many of us who have African descent might have gotten here from the very same people that were sold into slavery and the captives that were sold across the Atlantic Ocean. I would love to know, what are your thoughts on the history of this and that this movie was made? Let me know down in the comments below. You have this history, the true history of this very grotesque tribe that is selling their own people and raiding nearby African villages for that slave trade. Yikes. You also have this film that has been presented with all of these Black women at the forefront. You have it directed by Gina Prince Blythewood, who is known in the filmmaking industry. You have Viola Davis backing it as a producer, as well as helming the cast. All of these really prolific characters and really putting these women on the map. And then you have, are we honoring, are we upholding slave traders? Now, I have to stop here and think critically. If this had been an all-white team, production team behind this movie, would I be so apt to have gone to see it? Probably not. I definitely don't think I would be in agreement with even the film being made. And yet there have been so many films and so much content that's been made that was done in this very backhanded way about the Black experience or the African experience that has been done by white directors, white producers who really just want to make money off of Black trauma. I go back and forth because this is really difficult in the sense that I don't think that movies and entertainment and media should be responsible for individuals researching for themselves the truth. In fact, I don't think that media and entertainment should be responsible for you learning truth. You and I have to be responsible for ourselves to go and look into the history And I think we just have to be super, super mindful of what we consume. So this goes to my point that you will hear me say over and over again on this channel. Critical thinking. You must be critically assessing what you're taking in and what you are eating of. Think about the fruit of films and movies and TV shows and entertainment that you take in. That stuff produces inside your body. And if it's evil, if you're eating of evil things, guess what's going to come out of your life? So I'm actually very much in favor of this discussion, this conversation being brought up. I do think we need to have a real conversation about what actually happened. It's not just all white people are bad and black people are good, right? We had oppression in our own community. And these are the discussions that we often don't want to talk about because they do shine a light on us in a way that doesn't look too good. But the truth of the matter is we have to take the light with the dark. We have to take the good with the bad. We have to acknowledge that there is darkness in our history and in who we are as a people so that we can acknowledge the light of God and who He is in redeeming us from those things. Media that we have and even the historical context of this film is something that we need to be sober-minded in our taking in, and we need to be very, very open to the possibilities of what that means. What does that mean for us? If our history has these dark things, as it does in America, okay? If it has these dark things, how are we now moving forward with that information? Are we going to repeat the mistakes of our forefathers, of our ancestry? I think it's so hypocritical of us as a people, and I'm not just talking about black people, I'm talking about all people. It's hypocritical of us if we do not acknowledge the bad as well as the good. You want to see a people in chains, one must convince them that they are meant to be bound. And I think it's kind of an interesting dichotomy, right, with the slave history and the slave king. And at the same time, you have this line. When I look around at our culture and the many things that we are bound by, whether it's our own insecurities, our own struggles, our own challenges, whether it's our past, being bound by the things that have happened to us or the things that we have encountered that have been negative, whether it be people that we're dealing with, that we are bound to and bound to their toxic ways and their toxic abilities. You have had to be convinced that you were meant to be bound by that thing. And yet, I serve a God. If you know the Lord, if you know Jesus, we serve a God who has told us that we are free, that in Him there is liberty, there is freedom. We should not be convinced that we are to be in bondage because we are not meant to be in bondage. Now, this double meaning with the slave trade and the slavery context, and then on top of that, the liberation and the freedom of mind context, I think is so, so, so deep. It's a little more profound, I'm gonna be honest. I'm probably gonna have to sit with it a little bit longer. I'm gonna sit in this yellow chair a little bit longer with that understanding because we are not meant to be bound as a people. We're not meant to be bound to our insecurities and our issues, but we are because of the world that we live in, because there is an enemy after our hearts and our souls and our minds and our spirits that does not want us to succeed. But I am determined, after seeing this film and seeing the power that is, I am determined that God has everything I need to be strong and He has everything you need to be free. And so I encourage you, if you're going to go see this film, I think you should do it with a critical eye, with that analysis and understanding the history and the context. And I'll leave links down below if you want to research more for yourself, to decide for yourself if you want to go see it. But I don't think that this film is worth the boycott because there are so many other things about it that are truly redemptive. And I don't mean the actual history because frankly, that happened. We cannot redeem that. But we can tell a story that encourages a people to no longer find themselves in slavery, no longer find themselves in bondage. I think that is the bigger message of this film, that power is found in the we, not the me. That we do not need to be bound to these different things just because someone has told us or the culture has told us that we should. So if you enjoyed my review, I encourage you to go ahead and like this video. Make sure you leave me some comments down below and let me know, are you gonna see the movie? You're gonna go watch it? Have you already seen it? Let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments below. And make sure that you subscribe. I drop videos every single week about creative growth, about comedy and commentary, and I would love for you to be along for the ride. And before I go, if the Agoji women enter stage left, you better believe I'm gonna X stage right. I'll see y'all next time.